Welcome to The Road to Zero, a future-proof podcast, as we explore the changing nature of our economy as we look for prosperity and opportunity in not only preserving, but also improving our environment. Today on The Road to Zero, we're talking with Annika Greve and Shaye DiPasquale with TerraCycle. And you are both joining us from which part of the country?
So I'm actually joining you from Toronto.
Oh, you're in Toronto.
Canada.
Okay, and Shaye, where are you at today?
I'm joining from New Jersey.
All over the place. Well, it's nice. I see sun all over the place. It's sunny over here, so I guess it's a good day in the world today. All right. So what I'd like to hear is just maybe we'll start with you, Shaye, and just how did you get into this whole world of recycling and being part of a company that's kind of being leading edge in the recycling game?
Sure. So I actually kind of fell into the position, so to speak. Growing up, I'd say I grew up in a pretty eco-friendly household. I think my mom was kind of like my first eco advocate I'd ever been introduced to. Using reusable bags when we would go shopping, composting in our backyard. And I really kind of adopted that passion too and kind of carried that into my adult life. And then when I was in college, I studied communications and I became really passionate about, the element of storytelling and public relations. But I never really imagined that would be something I could unite with sustainability as a career. Usually with communication or with sustainability, I think a lot of people associate that with more like a science degree or sustainability degree, not inherently a communications tie-in. So right around, after I'd graduated is when I just happened to come across the job posting at TerraCycle, which is a company I'd already heard of and admired the work they were doing. And ironically, they were hiring for a communications role. And I was super excited, applied, and then got the job. And I've now been here for about a year and a half. And it's been a really great way to kind of tie two things I'm really passionate about, storytelling and sustainability, into one.
So great. Love that. And how about you, Annika?
Yeah, I would say, similar to Shaye in terms of upbringing, I think it wasn't really about sustainability at the time. It was just being practical. I grew up in a German household, and in Germany, reuse is a very real thing, and recycling is a very strict matter. They have a really great system there as well. And we did, composting at home as well. And it was really more of, again, practicality and finances. The longer you can use something, the more affordable it is over those uses. In terms of a career-wise, though, it's something that I took a roundabout way to get here. I have a background in marketing and finance, and most of my working career is actually in biopharmaceuticals. So it's not very much in the world of sustainability. For me, that was always a concept of this broad term of what does sustainability mean, rather than actually having a tangible way to impact it and to work towards that. So I actually took a bit of a career break a couple of years ago and made the choice to really try to realign myself, because I'm really much more of a mission-based person, to find something that I could contribute towards more at a broader scale, rather than just, picking up the litter that I see on the trails when I go hiking, because I was that person with the bag picking up that garbage. But being able to have an impact on a larger scale, which is when I found Loop and TerraCycle about a year ago. I heard about it. I spent about a week obsessing about it, finding out everything that I could, and here we are a year later. So I'm really excited to be part of the TerraCycle team and the Loop side, which is really moving into modernizing reuse onto kind of a global platform and bringing it to a much bigger scale than it can be done so far. So yeah, that's where we are today.
Wow. I love it. And I really hear like being part of a mission-based organization, really making a difference in that world, really appealed to the two of you. And Shaye, tell me a bit more about TerraCycle. What is TerraCycle kind of taking on, and why did it attract you so much?
Sure. So we are an international waste management company. And like you said, mission is like key at TerraCycle. So our mission is to eliminate the idea of waste. So TerraCycle partners with a lot of kind of leading consumer packaged goods companies to create innovative solutions for things that people would probably normally consider to be non-recyclable. So that's been everything from cigarette butts to dirty diapers to PPE waste being a really relevant one right now, to car seats. So kind of things that really run the gamut. And what we found is that virtually everything has a technical processing solution, which is something, a frame of reference I did not have before working here. And the key to recyclability is really whether or not consumers actually have a practical access to a local recycling solution for said waste stream. So when a lot of people think about recyclables, we think about the aluminum cans, maybe a plastic water bottle that we can actually, throw into our curbside recycling bin or the blue bin if we're in public. And all those items are recyclable. Most people know that. But then it gets kind of a gray area when we're talking about items that might be plastic, let's say, but it's a candy wrapper or a bottle of shampoo, something most people would probably normally think about putting into their garbage can. And yes, via the blue bin, none of those items would be recyclable. But with the solutions that TerraCycle creates, we find unique solutions that actually allow us to get those waste streams into the proper chains via which they can actually be processed and recycled, and then the resulting material, can be reused and upcycled into new products.
Yeah. Now, imagine that takes quite a bit of a network to make that happen, because you don't have that, the nice bin in everybody's house to go from. So how do you create that, like this recycling stream where there wasn't one before?
Since the beginning of TerraCycle, it's kind of all been based around the success of all of our programs has really been based around the community element of it and engaging as many people as possible. So probably the thing we're best known for is our national recycling programs. And these are actually programs that are funded by brands to help consumers collect and recycle hard to recycle products and packaging. So they're very consumer friendly in the sense that they're free for the consumer to recycle, but it also kind of creates this avenue through which companies can take responsibility to help recover and repurpose the packaging. So in that way, with our national recycling program, all anyone would have to do in order to join is simply to head over to the TerraCycle website and sign up for, whichever programs might interest them. If they use Colgate toothpaste, for instance, they might sign up for that program to recycle their oral care waste. And then within their own home, they could collect, items that relate to that particular program. And then when they were ready to, they had a full collection box and they're ready to ship it out, all they would have to do is just download one of the free shipping labels and box it up and send it into TerraCycle. And sometimes also with these brand specific programs or sponsored waste programs, as we also call them, there might be community drop-off locations associated with them. So this doesn't happen for every single program, but some of them have this. And instead of you collecting at home, maybe you don't have the room to do so, or maybe you just don't collect or use the volume of a particular product to kind of, in your mind, make it worth you sitting and collecting for it for maybe months or years while you're waiting to get enough pieces to send back in. Community centers, local businesses, we've seen like libraries, churches might create kind of like a community hub, sometimes even utilizing multiple of our programs, and create a place where the community can come and drop off their items that they can be recycled through one of our programs. And then they will send in all of that collected waste. So it really does kind of become a community element right there. And we originally called our recycling programs brigades, which I think also ties in that whole kind of element of camaraderie, of bringing people together around this whole idea of recycling.
Wow. Yeah, I've seen a couple of your recycling boxes. I have to say, I've never noticed them until maybe the last year, those TerraCycle boxes, and I see them more and more. And it's amazing how, yeah, I didn't even know you had shipping labels, like just from your own home and ship it off. I mean, how convenient is that? But imagine it takes a lot of work with partnering with these big companies. I really hear the targeting the producers, working with the producers and creating this network so that it actually gets back to be recycled.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, all of that, all of our national recycling programs are definitely, only happen because we do have all of these large partnerships. And, some of the brand partners that we have, like Colgate, for instance, will even solve for their entire category. So instead of even just, creating an avenue for their own products to be recycled, they'll create programs whereby they'll collect for all oral care waste, no matter the brand. So that's really exciting too, because then it makes it even easier on the consumer, because no matter what brand they might shop from, once they use that product and they just have that packaging left at the end, they have one convenient way to recycle it all.
I guess one question is there something you can't recycle?
That is an interesting question. We actually get it a lot. And we have a material solutions division within TerraCycle. And they, coupled with our research and development team, are really the two teams that kind of handled big questions like that. Like when we're brought a new type of waste stream that we've never touched before, I think they even really like the ones that are trickier. Like the harder it is, the more of a challenge it becomes. And as far as I know, like I don't know of any particular instance of a waste stream they weren't able to do. Knowing them as well, they're all very determined people. So I'd imagine, they would work their butt off to find a solution. But yeah, like I said earlier, a lot of what can happen is, I just, on the top of my head, I'm thinking of like shoes. That's been like something we've been talking a lot about over at TerraCycle. And that's something that has so many materials that are, glued and stitched together. And that's what makes it so hard to recycle something like that, because there's so many pieces that would kind of have to be painstakingly taken apart, which is something a local recycling facility doesn't have the proper machinery or even like the manpower to handle doing something like that. But, our research and development team, coupled with our material solutions team, will come up with a solution, a way to make that easier and also, maintain the value of the materials that they're separating out so that they can be reused and even resold to manufacturers who might use the post-consumer recycled content in, new packaging. So as far as I know, I don't have a specific example of anything we haven't been able to recycle. And I'm sure our team would say that they will find a solution for just about anything you were to bring to the table for them.
Yeah, I'm just imagining this crazy lab full of scientists and engineers ready to just bring something on. So it sounds like a lot of fun. And then one question now this research, so there's that whole piece of the product goes out and you're figuring out how to like recycle it, bring it back into the system. Do you get involved in a lot of research with companies on how they can modify their products to make them more recycle or easier to recycle? Does that also happen in your business?
Yes, I know they definitely will do like run tests on stuff like that. But I definitely think probably even like the loop side of the business works even more intricately with that, because that's kind of, part of how that whole platform works. So I might toss that one over to you.
Perfect.
Sure.
Great segue for Annika.
I think one thing I would add to that is that you'll often hear, a variety of people within our company, but even Tom Zach, who's the founder CEO, say this often and almost every day. The intent, and if in an ideal world, TerraCycle wouldn't exist because there wouldn't be a need for it. So we work with our partners to be able to find solutions for what they're recycling now. But then the ideal is that they're able to move into something that becomes more recyclable within that space, or ultimately where Loop is heading and where we're addressing within a more circular environment is moving into the world of reuse rather than the single use where something does need to get recycled in and of itself. So kind of looking at the three R's in the hierarchy, it's of course reduce, reuse, and then recycle. And that is exactly how it should be approached. And I think you'll see some really exciting kind of movements towards that. So on the Loop side, we're specifically working with our partners on the brand side and retailers and industry alike. But with brand partners, we help them move from a single-use packaging to a reusable, durable type of packaging. And then we work with retail partners to be able to embed that into their existing infrastructure. So ideally, the consumer journey remains almost the same as it is today, really mimics the world of disposability and maintains those virtues that are so important for it, which are convenience and affordability. That's really what consumers today know and need across, a variety of things, and habits are very difficult to change. So ultimately, that consumer journey stays the same. It's just a matter of where you return that package once you're done with it. Instead of a garbage bin or a recycling bin, you return it into a Loop return bin, where Loop takes care of it, we clean it, and we send it back to the manufacturer for refilling and starting the process again. So ultimately, we close the loop, and apologies for that pun, but it's hard to avoid that name, to bring reuse back into the professional supply chain rather than really the consumer-driven alternative where you have your bulk refill option within that space, which are also really great alternatives, but there is no silver bullet, right? So we're trying to make this more accessible to the mass consumer.
Okay. Yeah, I really hear the importance to make it look like what they're used to. Now, imagine what that looks like is instead of just a cheap plastic container, it'd be something more durable. What's your goal for how often a container gets reused?
Yeah, I mean, everything does have an end of life. I mean, our ideal would be thousands of times, definitely hundreds. But what we've seen across a variety of life cycle analysis assessments that we've done in this space, and we take this, of course, very seriously, being a social enterprise, we need to make sure that what we are doing actually has a positive impact on the environment. But we've seen after about 3 uses, on average across different product packaging, again, it's a huge span based on, imagine like a reusable like propane tank, which is massive, to something as simple as like a shampoo bottle. But across on average, after about 3 uses, you hit parity with a single-use alternative in terms of the impact on the environment. And after that, it just continues to grow. So reuse is better than single-use in most cases. There are definitely a few exceptions, just as there are, I'm sure, a few exceptions to what can be recycled, but they're far and few between.
Okay. Wow, I never realized it was that little. Just 3 uses really kind of covers that same footprint. So that's really amazing. Wow. So if you do reuse it 10 to 100 times, that's a massive improvement.
Definitely.
Okay. And then just to get an idea of your model, because I've heard of Loop and you're seeing it more and more. So someone buys the package, do they pay an extra deposit, or do they or is it just a matter when they come back to the store, they bring it and they'll find a drop off, or is there kind of like a refund return system in place? What's the best way to make it work?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And how we are introducing this, and we're live in 4 markets now, in the US, Canada, the UK, and in France. And we're actually launching in Japan later on this month, and also we'll be live in Australia by the end of this year. So we'll be live in 6 markets. And across all of those, we're really working on a deposit-based system. So very similar. It's something that's in the United States, still prevalent in a couple of locations. Think, SodaStream, or your propane tank for your barbecue, or your keg if you go back to your university days, you bring that back for a deposit as well. In Canada, the whole beer system is on a deposit-based and reuse system, where you pay a small deposit on a beer bottle, as an example. So these are systems that are really prevalent already in today's, in the markets that we're in. So what we're trying to do is modernize and bring that across multiple industries, because that works really well if you have 1 or 2 products. But try bringing back your propane tank to the beer store, or your SodaStream back to the gas station. It doesn't work. So when you have hundreds of products, you need to be able to have one unified system that's more accessible to everybody. So in this case, we're trying to develop this buy anywhere, return anywhere type feel, where you can really buy your lunch at Burger King in a reusable sandwich container and a reusable drink container, drop it off at Walgreens when you go do your groceries and get your deposit back. So for the consumer, it's a temporary cost based on that deposit-based system that then gets returned to them once they give back that packaging.
Okay. So in the Loop system, it's just one kind of return system. Any Loop product, you bring them in, you get your deposit back.
Exactly. Yeah. Trying to, again, mimic that disposability factor of convenience. So you don't have to go back to 100 different stores to return your items. You can go about your daily life and do minimal habit changes within that space.
Okay. And how big has Loop? Like when did this initiative start? Just to get an idea of how big it's or how much it's expanded since inception.
We've come a long way in a short time. So we've announced to the world. So I guess our official public launch was in January 2019 at the World Economic Forum. And then we launched about 5 months later in May of 2019 in the northeastern United States and in Paris, France. So in just about 2 years now, we're coming up to May, we've gone live in 4 markets. And where we're moving to in 2021 is really moving from just a pilot system where it's e-commerce based and Loop is running that on behalf of our partners, to integrating with our retail partners and quick service restaurant partners and going across all of those spaces. So we're actually live now in 10 stores with Carrefour, who's our retail partner in Paris, live on shelves. It's kind of an end cap solution, similar to how you would see maybe an organic section, 10, 15 years ago in a grocery store. It's a very similar proxy. You now have a dedicated space for Loop, except instead of looking at farming practices, we're here really looking at the packaging, sustainability side of it. And that will be coming to the United States market really soon. So this summer, we're actually launching with both Kroger and Walgreens in Portland and New York City. and Burger King later on this year as well, within kind of those same geographical areas. And actually, Loop by Ulta just launched as part of their Conscious Beauty campaign. Currently just an e-commerce platform, but definitely looking to move into the next iteration of that as well. So it's some really great expansion happening within 2 years' time.
Wow.
You'll see a lot happening this summer.
That's great. And just to get to that, so I hear the online portion. So for, let's say you buy online product and they're Loop products, so I guess you could bring them in any physical place that accept Loop, and can you send that to that same manufacturer like online as well, kind of like that, getting the shipping label and sending it from home as well, or is it just purely you'll bring it to your local deposit?
Yeah, so the e-commerce platform that we have live right now is a bit unique. It's a bit different. And it's probably a bit clunky, actually, if I may say that. But it's really an e-commerce platform. You sign up on it online, and it's live nationwide in the United States, with the exception of within the continental US, and also within Canada, within the province of Ontario. So you go to loopstore.com in the US or loopstore.ca in the Canadian side here. Create an account. It's free. There's no subscription cost within that space. And you place an e-commerce order as you would with any e-commerce site. You select your products, you pay for the product, plus the deposit price is put on hold for you. And then it comes in a reusable shipping tote. When you're ready to return your products, when they're empty, you don't have to clean them. You just put them back dirty. If you've ever tried to clean like a nut butter, as an example, it's really nice that you don't have to clean that. So you just put it back into the tote. You order a pickup. Within Canada, we're working with FedEx. In the US, it's escaping me right now who our partner is, but you basically schedule a pickup and they come to your door and pick it up. We get it back to our warehouse, we clean it and send it back to the manufacturers to restart that loop. In the summer, you're start to see that in store though, where you can really combine it with your existing shopping trip. So like I said, you can go to Burger King in Portland or in New York City by the end of this year in select locations, and you'll be able to order your Whopper in a single-use or a reusable container. On the Canadian side here, for any Canadian listeners, you get to go to Tim Hortons and grab your coffee and a reusable cup or a single-use alternative, pay your small deposit, and then you can return it at that drop-off location or at any one of the retail partner locations. So same thing with Kroger. If you get your shampoo from Kroger, you can return it anywhere at any of the other drop-off location bins.
Totally different from municipal dependent type systems. And I hear how fast you guys are moving. So that's the nice thing of innovation and entrepreneurship. And one question I have, I guess, is just to look at that aspect is, what have you seen from the market? Because I see there's a lot of growth happening. Are you seeing that the market's more and more interested in this? Because I know you got carbon taxes, you're talking about plastic bans, there's all this pressure about not having this waste going out. So are you noticing that from a industry side that the behavior is changing, or the desire to embrace new techniques are open?
Definitely. I think I'll quickly address the loop side of it and then pass it back to Shaye for any kind of insights on the recycling side. But I've noticed a massive shift in the past 2 years within the space. And maybe in part because of COVID and what has happened with this global pandemic for the past 2 years, or year, I guess it feels like two, but for the past year, it's put this focus on environment and that people are much more consciously aware that we need to make changes. So consumers are making themselves heard, both kind of vocally, but also with their largest voice, which is their wallet, and making those choices and those impacts. Industry is really making strides towards it. They're waking up. Systems changes, they take time, especially for massive companies that have built this up for the past 100 years. But they're moving towards the right direction, and I think legislation is finally following that as well. But legislation can only do so much. You need the consumer, you need industry, you need everybody to be excited and moving in that same direction. So I think, I've seen massive growth within that space and a lot of really just great interest within that space. And I think we're going to see a lot more changes coming soon.
And how about you, Shaye?
Yeah, and to echo that, to echo that, I would say that definitely the level of engagement that we're seeing from both brands and consumers moving in this direction is really inspiring. So I kind of mentioned the term a little bit earlier, but this idea of extended producer responsibility and the fact that, producers are taking a shared responsibility for what happens at the end of life of a product, of its packaging, and it not just being solely on the consumer to make sure, They're not tossing a wrapper on the ground that it's making its way into, the proper bin or the proper container. The fact that we're seeing manufacturers, companies, brands stepping up in that way is really exciting. And I think that's only going to continue to increase. And I think you see it like with the number of brands that are partnering with Loop, that are partnering with TerraCycle, and coming from all different sorts of industries. Like our beauty partnerships are blowing up. I think both with TerraCycle and with Loop, that's a really kind of growing piece of our partnerships. And I think then jumping over to like the consumer side of it, I think consumers are being brought more and more into this conversation, which is really exciting as well. People are really reimagining what waste is and how there can still be value in something we normally wouldn't put two thoughts to, throwing into the garbage bin. And just seeing more conscious consumerism come to light, people utilizing their purchasing power to let brands know that, hey, like your sustainability practices or lack thereof is very important to us. And, seeing consumers hold brands and companies accountable, I think all lays into this larger trend of more and more people being brought into the circular economy, understanding it, and actually actively partaking in it.
Yeah. And then what you see is next for the market? I see that it's shifting very fast, and you're kind of starting to see where it's going. What do you guys see beyond that, or what do you see as the next thing that Loop or TerraCycle will get involved in, or you see for the future of where this could go?
On the TerraCycle side, I do agree, like with what I said a little bit earlier, that I think we're going to see more brands who are coming in from maybe industries that haven't yet kind of taken this on, that maybe they're going to be like, we've been having a lot of firsts, people being like the first one in their kind of sector of the market to be launching a recycling program, and maybe even using it kind of as a way to kickstart their company's sustainability journey, almost pilot, what that all could look like. We're seeing a lot of companies, I think even, who might start working with TerraCycle and then transition over to Loop once they see that this is something that their consumers are excited about, that they want to remain loyal to some of the brands that they love, but they would like it to be in a little bit more of a sustainable manner. So I do think that will hopefully be a trend we continue to see, just kind of come to fruition more and more as the years go on.
Yeah. And just to echo that, I think that's exactly, the growth will continue within this space. And I'm going to steal something that I heard someone say on a panel event that I was on last week. In the future, it won't be green business anymore. It'll just be business. I'm excited for that to start happening and shifting towards that at a much quicker pace. On the Loop side specifically, I envision, the hopefully 10, 15 years from now, it's going to be nationwide at all mass retailers and all smaller retailers. Anywhere where you shop, you should be able to find something in a reuse platform, whether it's Loop on the professional side or some really great local initiatives which are going forward as well, or if it's a bulk refill. There are options for everything within that space, and I see that really becoming national and available and accessible to everybody, not just in the markets we're in today, but in developing markets, and really bringing it back across different industries. So not just consumer packaged goods, but textiles, where fashion is making some strides towards that method now as well, really following, the footsteps of Patagonia. Levi's has been putting out some really great initiatives too lately. So understanding where all industries can start to merge into this space and find their place, basically, it's going to be an exciting couple of decades to come.
Yeah, I love how it's such a universal concept. Doesn't matter what industry you're in. You make stuff, it goes out, and there's a way to bring it into a circular model. And I love how you really capture both sides, how to stop it from going to garbage, bring it to the recycling stream, and then let's go a step further with Loop and just start it from the beginning so that you got a better model. So really love how you guys have taken innovation and really that entrepreneurship space. I hear the partnerships you're making using what's there, whether it's FedEx or Purelator, to create this network. So it's really, it's amazing the growth, but you can see that there's such a demand for it, right? And you guys are really just creating a solution to what the market's been asking for a long time.
Definitely. And I think that's the benefit of working with somebody like TerraCycle. We consider ourselves more of an innovative company than we do a waste company. We just happen to manage in waste. And waste has never really been a sexy topic, but there are so many cool ways to think about and really rethink the entire industry and stop waste from happening, at the source. So I think great things to come from the industry as a whole, but definitely, TerraCycle, there's always a new project out there. And again, ideally, we won't be in business at some point because all solutions will be, everything will be solved. But practically speaking, we'll likely be here for some time.
To echo that, I think what's really exciting too is, it's an exciting time to be at TerraCycle, but it's also an exciting time to, I think, be in the space because, like we've been saying, it's becoming a lot more mainstream. And I think our approach makes it unique because we're really focused on meeting people where they're at. We're not asking people to make huge changes to their lifestyle, that makes it maybe harder or inaccessible for them to partake in these programs. I think that our approach makes it very easy to fit it into your existing lifestyle and make small changes that have a larger impact. So I do think that that's something that's pretty exciting about TerraCycle, but also just exciting to see that more and more people are embracing that.
Yeah, it is so great. And when I'm actually having talked to you, I almost think of, take the traditional waste company and combine it with some kind of Silicon Valley change maker, and you get kind of what you guys are doing, because it is very different than the image you'd have of a waste management company. So really thank you for your time today, and really thank you for the difference you guys are making, because I really hear how quickly things are changing, and you guys are a big catalyst for that. So it'll really be exciting where you'll be even a year from now.
Yeah, thank you for having me, for having both of us here.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your sunny day.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Thanks.
To hear more about our podcasts, showcase events, or the Futureproof Network, please visit us at www.futureproof-network.com.